it's Pete here, checking out all the weird and wonderful things in the weird and wonderful world of opera. I am all caught up with the history and the music, but I'm really picky about the stories. So, give it to me. What kinds of stories are there?
I'm a fan of operas that tell really epic stories. One of my favorite operas is Carmen, because Carmen has to make epic choices and decisions. Other operas that I really love navigate some of the most difficult moments of our lives, like Dead Man Walking.
Sounds dramatic. Where do opera writers get their crazy ideas from?
A conductor in a tux holding a baton. Text, The Weird and Wonderful World of Opera. Two winged angels on either side of the text. An angel holding a treble clef. An opera singer surrounded by treble clefs, an exclamation point, and a banner that reads, The Stories. The host, Pete, addresses the viewer. A man addresses the viewer. Text, Raymond O. Caldwell. Director, producer. A woman singing on stage surrounded by other performers. Performers wearing everyday garb perform a dramatic scene on stage. Pete addresses the viewer.
Operas are based on all kinds of things, like plays, books, and short stories.
Okay, so operas are based on lots of things that are turned into a script with music and words.
That's called the score.
Wouldn't it be cool if operas were based on real people? Like me? I mean, maybe there are.
There are operas about kings, presidents, queens, and even about mathematicians like Ada Lovelace and Alan Turing. There are operas based on fairy tales like Cinderella and Hansel and Gretel, operas based on literature like Moby Dick, and there's even operas based on regular everyday people like Tazorian Thompson's Blue, Copland's Tenderland.
Raymond addresses the viewer. Pete speaks to the viewer. Raymond speaks to the viewer. An angel holding a banner that reads, No good opera plot can be sensible, for people do not sing when they are feeling sensible. W.H. Auden. Treble clefs and an exclamation surround the angel and banner. Pete addresses the viewer. A woman speaks to the viewer. Text, Ashy Day, composer. Several references appear on stage. Cinderella batting a bird away. Hansel and Gretel speaking to the witch. Moby Dick smashing into a ship. Lights flashing on a cop car. And a sepia tone image of a barn. An angel pulls the curtain rod for each reference.
Alrighty! I mean, really, who needs simple words when everything from songs and sets to music and costumes and dance are all used to tell a story? Just like a movie, only this movie is live on stage, and it sings. We all have stories about how we got to where we are. I wanted to know how opera people became opera people.
How did I get into opera? Well, by accident. I'm a spoken word artist. I love hip hop culture. I'm a poet by trade, and as it turns out, operas are really just very long, multi-character poems set to music.
The first opera I ever saw was Turned Out when I was 5 years old, and I fell asleep. And at the end of the show, as they were bowing, they all turned and pointed at me, dead asleep in the front row. And that might be why I'm an opera singer today.
I got into opera because I love singing, I love theater, and I put them together.
I started in musical theater. I worked in dinner theater when I was in college. And then when I got to graduate school, because I knew some Italian and some German and some French, my professors thought it might be a good idea for me to get into opera. And I went for it, I never looked back.
I started opera actually through musical theater, so I was directing a lot of theater and musical theater, and then eventually made my way to opera.
When I was 17, I found myself in an opera. I sang in a church choir, and the guy who ran that church choir suddenly let me know that they needed more tenors. Tenors are the higher male voice in this opera production that he was in a local university. And I just thought it would be educational. I didn't think I liked opera. I just thought, let's give this a try. And about the second rehearsal, I realized I loved it. It was so beautiful. And the thing I didn't know is that it was funny. I always thought opera was like taking itself too seriously and all crazy and pretentious. Actually, this was a comedy, Mozart's opera, The Magic Flute, and it was so funny, and I just fell in love.
We all have stories to tell, so what's your opera story?
Pete speaks to the viewer, an angel holding a banner that reads, "Where words leave off, music begins." Heinrich Heine, poet. Treble clefs and an exclamation surround the angel and banner. Pete speaks to the viewer. A man addresses the viewer. A woman speaks to the viewer. Ashley addresses the viewer. A man sitting by a piano speaks to the viewer. Raymond speaks to the viewer. A man speaks to the viewer. Opera performers dressed as clowns perform on stage. Pete speaks and gestures to the viewer. Credits roll. Written, directed, and hosted by Peter Michael Marino. Interviewees: Timothy O'Leary, Francesca Zambello, Mark Bamuti Joseph, Aria Balian, Ashley Day, Raymond O. Caldwell, Ken Weiss, Marcia LaBeouf, Paul Taylor, Carl DuPont. An angel appears. Text: pianist, Dana N. Scott. WNO Opera Institute students: Natalie Hamill, Gianna Macedon, Aaron Knight. WNO Children's Chorus members: Colette Yang, Daryl Johnson. Text: Kennedy Center staff: Timothy O'Leary, General Director, Washington National Opera. Francesca Zambello, Artistic Director, Washington National Opera. Jordan LaSalle, Senior Vice President, Education. Warren G. Williams III, Interim Director, Music Education. Ashley Day, Manager, Music and WNO Education. David Kilpatrick, Director, Education Programs and Productions. Kevin Giglinto, Senior Vice President, Marketing. Andrew Carey, Vice President, Digital. Ben Rosenfield, Director, Multimedia. Regis Vogt, Executive Producer, Media Brand. Text: sponsors: Paul M. Angel Family Foundation, the Morris and Gwendolyn Kaffritz Foundation, Prince Charitable Trusts. Additional opera fans: Chad Vozen, Shannon Glassner, Megan McBride, Ahmed Eldawa. Produced by 522 Productions. An Angel Floats By, Fades to Black.